Hey, welcome back. Welcome back. Welcome back. Tie-Dye Talks, another episode. But wait a minute. What's going on here? If you have been with us for some time, you've been seeing, first of all, it was the two of us. Then you saw the three of us. Today it is the four of us. What's going on? Today we got a special guest. Joe will be joining us. I am Paul, co-host Andy, and co-host Tiffany. But today we just have something a little bit different because we got a guest speaker, which was a surprise sneak attack by Tiffany of us, bringing on another guest speaker. But hey, we're always open and we're welcome. So perhaps if you want to become a sneak attack person and you want to join us as one of our guest speakers or a guest host, you can definitely come on and chat with us. We're more than welcome to have you. However, though, it's going to be important because when we bring a guest speaker, we got to have a good topic to talk about. I don't even know what we're talking about today. Over to you, Andy. What we talking about? We got a guest speaker. What are we talking about?
Yeah, so today we're talking about the holidays and basically when families get together during the holidays, what are some of the burning topics? What are some of the top things that are discussed during the holidays? We're dealing with the holiday season. I think, so the topic to keep it simple and it's going to still be broad is what do families talk about the most during the holidays when they get together during the holidays? Is it religion? Is it politics? Is it sports? Is it all of the above? Or do they focus just on family and the family values because this is the one time of the year families all seem to come back together when everybody's just running all over the place year round, scattering, living life. So to keep it as simple as we can, we're gonna call it what are the main topics that family talk about during the holidays?
All
Okay.
right, there we go. We got the title. Welcome to your edition of Holiday Talks. We're
There
not
you
talking
go.
tie-dye talks today. It's Holiday Talks. That's what we're up to. There you go.
There
Over
you
to you,
go.
Tiff. You get to kick it off, Tiff. Holiday Talks. What are we talking about, Tiff? Go ahead.
Am I defining? I
Oh
always
my gosh.
define
See,
something.
she didn't leave the typical format. Definitions. Okay.
Yeah,
Tell
what
us
are the
what a holiday
definitions
is.
that we are doing?
So
Definition.
once
What is
again,
a holiday?
pull out the main topics from your family, or what do family talks about during the holidays? Start with you guys. What do you guys usually growing up? Maybe I know you have your extended family. You've created your new family, which is why we have your partner here. Yeah. Your better half is here with you, so you might have to be on good behavior or bad behavior. I'm not sure which one that's gonna be. But go ahead, Tiffany. So growing up, let's start with growing up. What kind of topics your family talked about during the holidays?
We kept it very surface level in my family. My family was definitely the one that just kept it. We're going to talk about the basics. You're not going to creep into anything controversial. Feelings get hurt very easily in my family, so it could ruin the lunch or dinner aspect of it very quickly. So I was very surface level growing up. As I started to get older, though, I was the one who I would always try to creep into those deeper topics. Because why not? Like make it interesting. We get here once a year. Like let's spice it up a little bit. So
When you mean by deeper, define deeper topics.
mm, talk about what's going on in the world. Like let's call it out. What's going on in the world right now, Those types of things. What's happening with work? Okay, let's dive deeper into work. It's not just good. Let's talk about that problem child that you're dealing with in school. So let's dig into those things.
So you rock the boat during
Yeah,
the holidays.
Hmm.
for
I
sure.
know that. Okay, so since we have Joe Paul, let's let Tiffany pass it to our partner Joe. Joe, so again, I know you and Tiffany grew in different cultures, but now you're
Mhm.
together, building a family together. But you can reflect first on maybe your childhood and the family time and topics. What did you guys do?
I think growing up, it was more of a reflection time. So, I mean, we would speak about what we used to do holiday before, what we did different this year, what accomplishments we are building on, what did we achieve last year, what that looks like for next year. Kind of getting the year in a recap, thinking about how we can be better as people. Politics was never really on the table because I guess more so we were aligned on those type of topics. We were very spiritual, so aligned on that too. So religion was never really contention. As I moved though, I realized that the more we speak about those things, it's the more like it's you step on toes a little bit. So here, I'm not sure if it's acceptable to say like politics is always on the table, but like diving into politics is not on the table. Like people expect you to bring up those topics, but no one expects to have a different opinion. So that's strange, but that's where it's at right now in America, I would say.
Right, Paul. You
Yeah,
have a
well,
midfield partner with you now. Joe is in the middle with you. You guys have to share the ball. Go ahead. He played it to you.
okay. Well, for us, Christmas used to be, and holidays used to be a big thing. Like, I'm more on my wife's side. Her mom, growing up, that was always a big thing. Birthdays, we always get together everybody's birthday or Christmas. And so we used to always have, we break up even Christmas, breakfast, somebody has that at their house, and then dinner, somebody else's house, and going here there. But as obviously the family has grown, because people are getting more married and their side, the other side of the family, and etc. So sometimes when we get together, it's big. It's a lot of people. Specifically, if I'm considering both my sides of the family, then there's my sister-in-laws and my brother-in-laws and my brother's family, and et cetera, et cetera. So it gets to be quite large. So conversations are just kind of all over the place, right? People are talking about different things in different corners, depending upon who or what they are. I mean, nothing's off the table. I mean, people just having their conversations. Sometimes some conversations even get a little heated, but hey, talking about different and various things all the place. There's nothing one thing, I guess, really people are just always talking about. It's just, I think the biggest thing for, our family is just always more than anything else is coming together and being together, right? During the holiday season more than anything else. And as you, get older and opinions and ideologies change as well too, your celebration changes, right? So that's another discussion of itself. But what you celebrate and why you celebrate it, that changes. It's not always the same. It's not consistent. It's not like written in stone, because you change as a person. And how do you change? Like even my son, decided not to celebrate Christmas, and that was a bit tough for my wife because she likes to celebrate Christmas, but I don't really like to celebrate Christmas. So there's all these different nuances of different people in the family. But you have to just find a way to manage all that, because the real goal is getting together and being able to share time together and break bread and be able to find out where people are at. So I think that's not lost on me, that important connection of being able to connect with people during the holidays, even picking up the phone and calling certain loved ones long distance, and then having them talk or throw them on speakerphone so they can connect with everybody that's at your house, right? That's another extended way of having the conversation, more based around family and family ties and family connections more than anything else. So that's kind of what our home is like and what's been happening around the holidays here. I know, but our holidays are different. I know you guys start your holidays from this week, Black Friday and Thanksgiving and all that stuff, right? So I don't know if you include that as a big slippery slide into
You
into
stealing
holidays.
my ball.
So I
Pass
don't
it,
know.
pass it. I'll
There you
tell
go.
you.
Passing on the wing, deep in the back post. There you go. So you guys, you tell me.
Interesting. I'm processing all of you guys the holidays and what we discuss as a family. And I'm gonna say I'll do like Joe and go back to the culture of Trinidad and Tobago. Christmas time in the islands it's huge. It's like the one time of the year that everybody seems to come together. Families visit. There's a lot of food. There's a lot of drinks. There's a lot of that, right, during Christmas time. And I think if you maybe ask anyone from Trinidad and Tobago again right now about their favorite holiday, regardless of religion, is probably going to be around Christmas time, because beyond the religious beliefs that and the celebration for what they always talk about the real meaning for the season, and that gets into are you really celebrating the birth of Christ and this and that, or are you doing just buying gifts and going crazy, the commercialization of it. But for me and for our family, our mom, growing up with a single mom, made Christmas time a very, very special time of the year for us. The house was rejuvenated, Christmas tree, painting, baking, cooking. I mean, it was always, the word I would use is festive. And I feel like people had a different mood. People were kinder, people were more loving, people were more together at that time of the year. Rest of the time, forget it. They might blow you up, but Christmas time, they seem to have this feeling of togetherness. And so we brought that here. My wife is also from Trinidad, and we've developed that as part of our culture here in the US, where we just kind of extended what we were doing as kids in the island with our kids. And it's a special time for them. And especially my wife is she wants Christmas year round, right? Because she wants to watch all the Christmas movies and all the stuff that's going on, and just and so. But you mentioned something, Paul. So when we talk in holiday here, as we bring it back to Tiff, in America, the holiday season starts with Thanksgiving. Canada has their Thanksgiving in October.
Yeah.
That's still, I think, the beginning of the holiday season because it's North America. Then we have the Thanksgiving coming up next week here. And we've adopted that too, right? Thanksgiving has a meaning in America, but we create a meaning within a meaning to give thanks on a different level. And again, another time for family to come together again, another opportunity for family and friends to come together. Again, of course, it's probably way too much food that you need and this and that. But then in terms of what we discuss, which is what this topic is about, I think here in the US, it's become a sports dominant kind of a holiday season because you got the games are on, whether it's the basketball or the NFL, and that the guys are always sort of around the games. The ladies are doing their own thing, talking about whatever. I can't really tell you. I gotta bring you on here so they can talk about what they talk about. But to me, it's more sports centric with the friends that I have when they come over around the holiday season, right? I don't think we get too into the politics maybe this year because of a lot of the things that's going on in the US. If they come over, it's going to be a lot of political conversation because that's sweeping the nation now. But typically, that's what we do. So I know I've said a lot. So bringing it back to you, Tiffany, I asked you this talk about when you were growing up, and obviously culturally, you're from one state, you live in another state. So maybe you can speak to now your family now and kind of how the holidays is similar or maybe different, and maybe even the contrast in the Southeast where Florida is considered and Midwest where you now live.
Yeah. I think I don't know if where I live has something to do with it. I think it's more Joe and his culture that he brings into this that has something to do with it. I think that we mesh our, I guess, cultures there. There's certain topics, like obviously my mom will still visit for, Thanksgiving and Christmas. So there's certain things where I'm like, oh, let's not push so hard there. However, I am now building my family and building my traditions in the way that I want to do things. And that aligns with what Joe wants to do. And in that sense, teaching our kids, okay, we are in the holiday season. This is what it means to us. These are the ways that we want to carry it out. These are the conversations that are important to have as we, near the end of the year. And it's important to also reflect that, throughout the year, what's gone on, having little pieces to bring up and remember, discuss, get ready for the next year, those types of things.
Okay. Before we pass it to Jodo, Tiff, what about the religion aspect of the discussions with the kids? Do you guys do that now? How do you guys approach that?
So, religion aspect, I think that it's important to discuss it now. My family, we always went on Christmas Eve, and Joe and we always had this conversation. I think his family used to go on New Year's Eve, right? So now we're kind of figuring out. I've never gone to church on New Year's Eve, so that's like new for me. So we're figuring out how to mesh those two things, but it always seems super busy. It's like a classic thing to do. My mom comes like it's still something we do, and we have the discussions around like the reason for the season type of thing, and also the commercialization, just being honestly like real about it, of seeing both sides, and this is how you can navigate it, because it's a lot to navigate. Thanksgiving as well, there's the way people view Thanksgiving of like, oh, how it came about versus now what we've created it into. There's some controversy there, so I think it's about how you navigate that and have those conversations.
Okay. So Joe, on the hot seat, you're listening to you guys as a family. I went back to our culture now. You also in this area in the Midwest, which I think the US is unique in that each state have their own little thing more than people realize. It's one country, but it's multiple countries within a country. Each state is bigger than the island we came from, Joe. So what are you seeing? How are you guys as a extension of what Tiff is saying, navigating, building your tradition, while merging the differences that you all came from, and maybe even the similarities, I guess.
I think it all just comes down to like what each of us value as important because at the end of it, I think it's all about family and like celebrating and giving thanks. So as you said, like Seventh-day Adventist is not big on Christmas, but the country itself of Trinidad is big on Christmas. So you would find SDAs that celebrate Christmas to a huge extent, but it's not, I guess we never really did like the church service and stuff on Christmas Eve because that wasn't really the reason for the season at that point, but more so on New Year's Eve because you're kind of turning a new chapter in life and in terms of progress and stuff. So if I guess family values are aligned, I think you can come to a consensus as to what is important. So, and for example, like one of the things that we really clash on around the holidays is like how many gifts the kids get.
Yeah.
So like we would buy the kids one gift each because we know that like everyone else is gonna buy like three or four, which kind of enforces that like it's about materialism, which then brings in the topic of do you want to talk about materialism over the holidays? But like it's important to recognize that that's not where you want to like micro train your kids into thinking just because it's Christmas, that means you get stuff. Or because it's Thanksgiving, that means you have to go somewhere for it to feel like the holidays. So the conversation kind of it goes from like what we value into like what you can get out of it. And that's where it's kind of tricky to navigate. Because I think we all value the same thing, but like how it's being expressed and like how people grew up. Like I don't know if Tiff's mom is like if she grew up poorer than how she is right now, does she want to give the grandkids stuff that she never had? And that's what's important to her. That's how she shows her family values. But then me growing up in like I didn't always have this, not to say that I'm like rich or anything right now, but there's a difference between the status that I grew up in and the status that I have right now. That means that I also valued like the process to get there and I want to show my kids that. So now are we just trying to give them, an easy path to success? Or are we trying to show them that there is value in hard work? And that doesn't necessarily mean that you don't need to struggle to be successful, but there is values to be learned like along the way. So values are aligned, just the expression thereof seems to be a conflict.
Well said. Well, before I pass it to Paul, some deep stuff you just hit on there. Which one of you guys tell the kids there's no Santa Claus?
I did, and Tiff doesn't like that.
You already did that?
I mean, I kind of you ask
We are
leading, guiding
victims. We are
questions.
victims of Elf on the Shelf. We are
You have to
victims.
think about it though. Like I believed in Santa Claus when I was in standard three, right? And my friend asked me, "So where's your chimney?" So I said, "I don't know." So he was like, "So how does Santa Claus get in?" So I was like, "He knocks on the door probably." So I was like, "How?" He said, "So how come you never heard the knock?" I was like, "Because I was probably sleeping." So yeah, did you ask your parents? They're like, they never heard a knock either. So I'm like, okay, let me ask my kids these questions and see like if you come to informed conclusion based off of the information that you have, like you come to your own conclusion. So like I asked the same question and then they realize that is it necessarily something I need to believe in? No, but they kind of buy into the idea that somebody somewhere like has my best interest at heart from the North Pole to like bring stuff for me. But he's probably not real. It's just you hold on to that as a kid as an ideology to kind of make yourself there's power in having fantasy, there's power in having imagination. So I think that's what they value.
Wow. Well, Paul, a lot coming at you. That was I don't know, man. That was a knuckleball pass, but you got good skill. You took it down well, and you're ready. Over to you, man.
It's an interesting point you said about, Christmas and the Santa Claus thing. We did all that too. The kids are younger. Not that I believe in that, but again, that was something that was a big thing. But I guess it's up to us, men. We bear the problem, right? We're the ones telling them that Santa Claus ain't real.
You're supposed to
That
be.
in their world and telling them that there's no Santa Claus, right? That was an ongoing thing in our household. Again, something I really didn't believe in, but you got to give up some things to get some things in life too as well. Plus, my mom's side, I'm sorry, my wife's side, they're big into the whole Santa Claus and take pictures with Santa Claus, and I'm like, why put my tree on some old man and they love to take pictures and they even want to go, right? But is it for you or is it for the kids? You know, we have some pictures of, some kids might want to go somewhere. Who's this man? I don't want to go sit down next to him. Why go next to him for? And some of them want to go because, oh, it's the candy and the gifts and again something. So, like you said, what's it really about? I think sometimes, we lose the forest through the trees, right? Or lose the trees through the forest, whichever way you want to look at it. But at the end of the day, looking at the bigger picture, it's about family. It's about time. It's about reflection. Whatever you're reflecting on. Sometimes when you're living in a society, you're living amongst people, and they're not your people, you still have to acquiesce and you still have to make tolerance. But at what length do you allow that tolerance to then become, what you are and what you're about? And that's something I think facing the generations of kids nowadays, because we're now living in an information age and people are much more knowledgeable than just following traditions because you're told to follow tradition. Whereas Tiff was saying, maybe you want to make your own traditions. But sometimes is that the thing to do? Not to get too religious, but these are all the questions we're about nowadays because we have so much access to information. It's like trying to drink from a fire hose. But at the end of the day, everything's about filters. You need filters in life, right? This is one person on TikTok, I keep forgetting her name, as a woman that does all this stuff about Generation X, and every time they ask these questions, young people come on and ask questions about what was it like back then, and how would you not drink from a glass? She said, "What are you talking about? We went out the back and drinking from the hose, right?" So the point is the stuff we used to do back then is quite different. It's not the stuff we're doing now. We have to make up our own minds and understand how we're celebrating. So I think it's changing. Like you said, sports, we know not to get into the sports discussion, but there's some things you don't want to talk about: sports, religion, politics, all these things. But that's the things that we do discuss. It just comes down to, I guess, in what depth or length are you discussing them over the holidays? You don't want to have these big philosophical questions when everybody's just kind of there to have a good time kind of thing and connect and meet. However, sometimes you do go into those conversations. There's the big sporting events, but I don't really pay attention to them. That's not me, but my brother on the other side, he's a big sports guy and you gotta see the game and gotta see what's going on with football and all that other stuff, right? So it really comes down to, I guess, what you value and what your family has taught you to value, in terms of traditions, right? But as they say, vain traditions of man. Should we be, considering our own traditions? Because people can make up traditions on anything they want. And, generations later, you're following it because somebody somewhere in your family decided to make up some tradition. So then do you ever stop and question why are we celebrating these things? I think, again, being in an information age, people are starting to ask those questions now. That's why we're seeing these changes within society, being a multiculturally diverse society as to what's important and what should we be celebrating. It's funny, one time we went from Merry Christmas, now you can't say Merry Christmas anymore, right? You have to say Happy Holidays, or you have to be inclusive. What are you saying? Happy Holidays, Happy Kwanzaa, Happy Krishna, Happy this, Happy that, Happy everything, right? But that's why people just say, okay, Happy Holidays now. And that, again, it reflects the change of what's happening in the world, right? So at the end of the day, for me, it's really important to just be mindful, be respectful, and enjoy the time and try to not compromise myself in terms of my own beliefs and my own, thinking around things, but at the same time be welcoming and also understanding of other people. Over to you, Andy.
So we have now 2 young grandkids. And last Christmas, we traveled so much. We were in Italy that we didn't have a Christmas tree for the first time I can remember in my entire life. Right? And that felt really weird because now I feel like this. I told you that, and Joe, you kind of said it. We all grew with traditions around Christmas time and certain beliefs, true or false, as we navigate life and come up with our own understanding. But we had a childhood where we had that fantasy and imagination and was able to enjoy the joy of Christmas. So even though we are older, is it right for us to kind of direct it different for the kids and take that away from them at an earlier age, or let them discover it like we did as we navigated life? Because at the end of the day, it was still a good, fun childhood, believing in Santa Claus and looking forward to the gifts. We still went to church. We understand the birth of Christ. We understand the 3 wise men. Our elementary school, Joe, you had to do plays about it. It wasn't something that was left behind. It was molded in the culture. So, but as we grow culturally, even back home, the commercialization, the world doesn't stay still, right? So everything has become hyper commercialized beyond the traditions, right? Even Halloween, people have the belief about where that came from and what that does. But Trinidad itself is a very unique place, right? One of the things they say in Trinidad and Tobago is where every creed and race find an equal place.
Yeah.
Well, I think it's one of the most unique places in the world because really we got almost every religion, not every, but a lot, coexisting in one little island, different ethnic groups. And when it's Diwali, it's the festival of light, but the country is sort of unified, even though you're not a Hindu. When it's Christmas, it's the same thing. So it was a very unique place. Maybe it wasn't, a lot of my friends like to say Trinidad is not a real place. Maybe that's true. Maybe it was a fantasy place in terms of how people really approach life. I know we in North America, the real place where so many different cultures are also here, but there's just difference in how they approach traditions and so forth. I do think for me, the holiday season is about family, it's about togetherness, it's about love. And if we keep those themes and we can have the belief wrapped around that, the amount of gifts. Joe, I think you said something that resonated with me. I feel like as a dad, what we didn't have, my wife and I, we try to give, we try to compensate. And that's, you got to be very careful with that because there is value in learning to go get than just getting. That's a true statement. And it's a balancing act because you felt the void of your childhood, you want to compensate, but are you helping or hurting in that process? And how do you really balance that? Because you don't want your kids to feel left behind. And the peer pressure, for sure, in the modern day society with social media and stuff, I think, we always talk about it, guys. And Paul, you always say, I think it was always there. But I don't know. I think the kids today are exposed to so much more. And the pressure of being involved in what's going on trend-wise, having a phone at a young age, having these gifts, having that. I think you guys, to hear that you and Tiff regulate the amount of gifts, that's amazing. Because I don't know many young parents in your demographics are thinking like that when it comes to Christmas. The tree is overflowing. There's abundance beyond belief. And then really, do the kids really value all that stuff, or they're just learning to be more discarding stuff and not working for stuff? I mean, what is the message coming out of that? I don't know. That's a whole nother topic, but it really is an interesting one when we unpack the holidays and the meaning of the holiday, and then where we take it, where the society takes it from the commercialization of it, right? And Paul, I think before I bring Tiffany in, you always had the way you said it about this society, and the commercializing of basically everything, right? It's all about capitalizing on selling, and you gotta kind of really understand the game, otherwise you get caught up in it, right?
Absolutely. It's challenging, but again, it's all saying Mikey's got a nickel, Johnny's got a nickel, Freddie got a nickel, mommy, daddy, why I can't have a nickel too? That's the thing, right? That's the thing.
Okay, so Tiff, as we look to close out the holiday season topic, a very interesting one. We've gone in multiple directions. You've been listening. What are some of the things now, like our audience are listening to this? Are we talking about what are the main topics during the holidays when family come together? And maybe also what are the values that we all try to project as a family during the holidays to keep tradition alive, to maybe keep the focus of the family values alive? What are your thoughts in terms of how you guys are continuing to navigate this slippery slope?
So one thing that me and Joe also do with our family is with any like large occasions, such as like a birthday or even Christmas, we also have our kids go through their things, and now it's time to give things away. Because that part of having it just accumulate, you're gonna have so much stuff, half of it you haven't touched in, forever. Let's give this to someone who could possibly now get joy out of it and use it, right? So I think that's something that as I've grown and had my own family, I'm thinking of the things that I do want to instill. And that's also something, kids don't have money. If we had, what was it? Our youngest just had a birthday, and my oldest, I had to go buy her gift to give to the youngest. So it's like, now it's like, okay, so how do we navigate these things of like, you want to participate? How can you participate effectively while learning a lesson as well through this? And that also goes for Christmas. You know, you want to give gifts. Okay, can we maybe make something by hand? Can we use what we have within the house to create something that is even more meaningful sometimes than something that's store-bought, right? So emphasizing those things in terms of the beliefs. Something that is interesting to navigate, I think, with that is, I guess, so the story of how we even got sucked into this elf on the shelf, I will say. My oldest came home from school, and so this is like this whole thing. I've avoided it for so long, this elf piece. And she came home and she said, Mom, everybody else got this elf. Why don't I have one? And it was like the saddest look on her face. How do you crush that dream of being like, Psh, I don't think that was the time and place. Before long, she'll figure it out that it's me moving this elf around the house. But for right now, like it's the most exciting thing of the season for her is telling quite literally everyone, which apparently we've traveled with this elf. This elf has gone on more trips with the family than I can count. So those are the things of like this right now for my kids. Like this is a piece of the holiday season that's important, the belief, right? The imagination of it. And that's also a part of the feeling that they receive, right? There's some care within that elf. The elf does little things around the house. It's cool. It's something they're excited to wake up and see. Unfortunately, my youngest will also probably get sucked into this. So we have a couple more years with this elf. But yeah, I think that that's part of it is learning what you want for your family and how to instill the proper things and passing that down for them to pass down to their kids, right?
Before I let you go, do you and Joe give each other's gifts for Christmas?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You guys have a limit
Yes.
too?
We do the, I don't know what you call it, but there's like a, oh no, wait, that's our anniversary. Never mind, forget that. Our anniversary is also right around, it's the 29th. So
That's
yeah,
right. I
it's
was at your
4 days
wedding.
after Christmas. So
Yeah.
we get Christmas gifts, anniversary gifts. Yeah, very
Guys
close.
double dip. Not fair, not fair.
Yeah,
Who planned that day?
yeah. Joe did very strategically.
Okay, so Joe, coming to you. So yeah, as we close, as we wind down on the topic, it's a deep topic. Obviously, we've drilled down now on the kids and how you're molding them, along with what you went through as a young kid and now your parents and the tradition and the culture. And of course, you're in a different country. So how are you continuing to navigate that to make sure that you don't crush the elf on the shelf completely, but you make sure you embed these values that you said you guys are about so that you give them a good foundation to really, navigate life with.
Yeah, so I think, as I said, like there is power in imagination, and there is power in the whole belief of fantasy and that concept. So, like as stringent as I say it now, like between Tiff and I would probably be the one to like let things slide a little bit more, like as a parent, because like it's powerful to believe that sometimes things do come out of thin air, or um creativity kind of sparks from nowhere. Like that's how kids innately like get their best ideas or their best creativity out. And like what we do as adults most times is like implement very rigid or like stringent limits, and that kind of becomes our kids like inside voice as to what they can and can't achieve. And this is kind of like a life thing. This is not just only like holidays, which is kind of deep, but in over the holidays when you experience the most fantasy, and you have that indulgence in the most amount of imagination. So not really killing that dream kind of leads to them being a bit more creative in other aspects of life and being a bit more inventive or innovative with how they deal with disappointment or problem solving or critical thinking and stuff like that. So like the whole elf on the shelf thing, like I understand the concept. I never had one, so I don't know really what to do with it. But it's nice that your daughter wakes up and she has something to look forward to. That like she's motivated, for example, to go to school and tell her friends about the elf. Like you don't have to deal with really the problem of your kids saying, like I hate school, I don't like my friends, stuff like that. Like those other imaginative pieces in their life motivate them to be a bit more productive in stuff that we want them to be productive in. Because you're not just going to go to school because I say like you have to go to school. Like as a kid, that doesn't resonate with you. So that piece, and then Tiff kind of touched on it a little bit. You're getting all this stuff for Christmas, but like, what are you giving to people? So like, if even if you need to make a card or get a craft at school, but like put some effort into it, and even do like a handmade gift that also shows that like obviously you can't work, you can't go out and make money to buy stuff for people, but you can see that when people do buy stuff for you or take time of their day to go shop for you, it is something that is strenuous on them. It is something that is a commitment for them as well. They are also like stretching themselves thin to like provide for you. So like what can you do to show that, you are grateful or you can return the favor and possibly in the future when you work hard and you make money, like you can also share that with them as well to kind of show your love, show your appreciation. So making stuff, making sure you say thank you, like giving stuff away to people who probably don't have as much as you do, prioritizing what you like, what you don't like, making sure there's a use for everything, I guess. That kind of helps holistically with this.
Before we pass it to Paul, what about I mentioned something about the heightened peer pressure. Are you guys seeing that with Aaliyah's age group already? Is it worse than when you guys were that age? Or can you tell about what they're dealing with in school with their peers and maybe the pressure to continue to fit in and go along with some of the customs and tradition, which can seep into the commercialization, like the phone, for example. How you guys seeing that? Is that real? Is that still not an issue yet for you guys to deal with?
I think for in terms of peer pressure, if you don't mind, I'll go first. If like I was listening to a podcast lately, and basically, I don't think the peer pressure is different than what we experienced. I actually think our peer pressure was worse because we didn't really get the peer pressure from like our peers were very close to us. Our friends were really close to us. So like in our kind of millennial age group where we were like seeing your guys' generation leaving and like the new generation kind of coming in and like the internet is just being created and we're just born into this information era as Paul describes it. I think we took a lot more on from our friends because we consider our friends close. The peer pressure now is from like people who you don't know. So in the podcast, they kind of describe like this mainstream process of thought. So everyone is now like pressured to think the same or have the same opinion rather than do the same thing. Like no one is really influencing someone else to do something. They're more like influencing you to think a certain way. So like you may see the same advertisement on like multiple different platforms that like describes how this one mechanism works. So like whether or not you think um this food tastes good or whatever. So you're now like training yourself to think like, okay, I don't like this, but you don't really have a reason as to like why. It's just because like you've seen it so many times that you train your brain into thinking, all right, this is what should be right. This is what is mainstream. This is what is like in right now. So that's why I think their peer pressure is kind of coming from. It's more like attacking their thought process, which will lead into deeds. But for us, it was more, I think, you do something kind of without thinking just because like someone who was close to you kind of told you that it was okay to do it or they're doing it too.
Right? Um, Paul, Tiff, you want to jump back in real quick on the peer pressure with the kids, and then we go to Paul?
Yeah. I would agree with Joe on that in the sense of for peer pressure. One, when we were growing up, in terms of I'll keep it holiday seasoning, we had commercials that were telling us about all the new like toys that were coming out and stuff like that. And now it really is just kind of I guess what you see around, and me and Joe are pretty good about kind of pressing that whole, okay, well, why? Why do you want this? Like, let's think about this a little bit deeper as to what is really going on here. So we're kind of pressing that. And sometimes it's okay to just want something just because, like, that's part of just life. And you kind of learn the lesson through that of now I can use this as an example in the future. Hey, you didn't play with this scooter for more than 3 times. So was it really, something that was a good purchase or something that was a good thing to spend our money on, those types of things, in terms of bringing back that responsibility aspect and that self-reflection aspect to them. Aaliyah's pretty solid in her thinking. She takes after Joe in that. So she's pretty solid and not succumbing to peer pressure and more questioning, okay, well, why why do I want this, or why does everybody have it, or it's not really my thing. Like she's pretty solid, so I'll give her that. So I'm not sure if it necessarily affects her so greatly, or we're seeing that effect on her so greatly. And maybe that's just because of her, the way she is.
Except the elf on the shelf.
The elf on the shelf, though, ours is special.
But there you go.
Ours travels.
Except the elf on the shelf.
Yeah.
That one, hey, I'm doing this one too. Right?
That one, I'm not gonna lie. Whoever created that, I just want a couple words, just a few words, just a couple, because that thing haunts me, and I wake up in the middle of the night forgetting that I did not move it, and yeah, we need to do it now. So, but yeah, I think, but also that creates inclusivity, is the fact that now she can go back to school, and it's like you're not an outcast because you don't have an elf on the shelf, which also is very expensive, by the way.
Right, but that's going back to the peer pressure though. That's what I'm saying. So I just wanted to unpack that real quick, because it still exists from a standpoint of maybe not the closeness that Joe is talking about, but there's still peers and people having stuff and you not having stuff. Paul, you said some little rhyme about John, this one have a knicker, this one have a knicker. That's still, it's gonna always be a pressure, whether you're close or not. It's like, okay, I don't have a Jordans or whatever. So I do think it exists. Anyhow, we are the old school, Paul. So we have a
Who you calling old? Who you calling old?
the mature.
Wait, see,
My
I ain't got no
bad.
gray. Show up on my grays. When do you
My
have the
bad.
gray?
You're
When
right.
you have the
You're right.
gray? Wait, watch.
I know. Don't rub it in, man. I don't want to put no color either. I'm
Here you
gracefully
go.
embracing it. Well, Paul, over to you. You heard a lot. You were listening, and I know you got a lot to say as we close out here.
Not so much a lot to say. I just think for me, again, ages and stages, I've grown. I think I've changed a lot. I mean, I look back on and reflect upon the growing of my kids, and now hopefully, one day soon, not too soon, but soon, I'll be a grandparent, and then it'll be, what kind of things are my children instilling, and what do they learn from me? And that's part of it, right? Your children are a reflection of you, but they're their own minds, and like you're saying, Tiff, next generation, you're going to settle on what traditions you want and what's important. But I think if we hold dear onto certain values, family values, one of the things I definitely say that I was given from my wife. We didn't really have that because my parents divorced, and we tried to keep close, but we were never that close to the family. Whereas on my wife's side, they're a lot closer. Like I said, every single birthday, you can't even have your own little birthday and have cake, and somebody else want to jump over and have a piece of cake. You know what I mean? That's how they are. So I appreciate that. That's not a negative. That's a positive. I appreciate the idea that as a family, we were always connected. My dad was a big fan of trying to keep the family connected and getting to know people. I remember hopping into, a car and driving to the States, whether it's for soccer or if even a trip, or flying to Trinidad and going back home because I didn't get a chance to go back home very much because I left home from young, but I appreciate the few times I went back with my dad and he would go by everywhere. So whenever I tell my wife, let's go back home, she don't want to go. I mean, she never been to Trinidad at all, but I've been to Jamaica like 4 times now, right? So I keep saying to her, we have to make a trip to Trinidad.
That's a
What's
bad
that?
balance. You got to fix that. But go ahead.
Exactly. No, she didn't want to go because she says whenever I'm going, it's me and a suitcase, and I just buy this family and that family and that family, and wherever I lay my head, I'm good to go. But she don't want that. She want 5-star hotel, and what I mean, and fancy this and fancy that. Trinidad's not really about that, as you know, right? You could do that, but you're not seeing family. Where you're gonna go stay only in Port of Spain. I mean, we're all over. I have family Arima, Aruca, even Miaro down in Point, San Fernando, and most of my family stays San Fernando. But I'm traveling, I'm bouncing around. Like when my son went back home for his trials with the national team, and we didn't even know we got a last minute trial. I thank Tiger. Tiger was the one who blessed us with that and hook it up, and I got to connect with the coach, and we were under 1 week's notice. We fly in, and we missed the trials for under 17, so we had to travel the under 20s. But I didn't even know how the hell I was going to get around. And my cousin said, "Here, take my car." And the next cousin said, "Come stay by me. I have an empty room with air conditioning, everything. You stay in the room." And that was it. Family, so we were taken care of. And even one of the parents, the trial stayed longer. Another parent came down from Canada, and he had to go back home after a week, and because we ended up staying, I think, 2 weeks. I said, "Fine, I'll pick him up and drive him around." It's not that bad. But I remember getting up 6 in the morning to make it up to Arima from San Fernando, hour and a half drive in traffic just to get them there for these trials in the morning. You know what I mean? So that is the experience that I have, and my son learned up on that. He learned up, saw his father sacrificing to take him back to Trinidad, and wherever we live, we gone by family here, there, and anybody who needed a ride, we picking up and driving them, dropping them off, and going about. And I took them shopping in the malls just so you get to see all all the different places. I take him to Trin City, I took him Yarrow to the beach, I took him down Point Fortin, you know. So he at least got a sense of that culture, so it's not lost in the next generation. But what does that have to do with holidays? Everything, because it's the same thing. It's those memories you want to instill in your children, the positive memories. You know, you don't know about parang and about all the Christmas stuff, you know, all the Christmas traditions that come from Trinidad, punch crème and parang music and open door food. My wife used to cuss on that. That's why I used to laugh because of the front door. Anytime around Christmas, my front door is opening. In comes her brother, in comes my dad, in comes this one, that one. And she used to get vexed. Why you don't lock the front door? This, that, the other. I don't want anybody walking my house. But now the front door is unlocked and she family walking in the front door all the time now. So as a joke, I have now a new enclosure up front. So I lock the enclosure and joke sometimes. They come to lock it. Why is the door lock up? Why the door lock up? Because we have an open home, I mean, so never mind. That was part of it. My wife used to say, okay,
It's
lock
not
up
like
the
you're
front.
locking it because of the in-laws. That's
No, no, no. I just do it for joke, man. I do it for joke to get them sometimes. But at the end of the day, I really appreciate looking back now on the fondness of the connectivity, the fondness of the family, the fondness of celebrating, whatever you're celebrating. But you're celebrating something, and we all love to celebrate, but that's the issue, what you're celebrating for and about. People like to make up, I say something's vain traditions, but the funny thing is the whole idea of them being vain and the fact is a tradition. We as people, as human beings, as people of whatever religion, faith, we like traditions for whatever reason, right? Those are positive things that are handed down. They said break bread and do this in remembrance of me. And so we do things to remember stuff. So we do things to remember our family. We do things to remember our friends even who've gone. So at the end of the day, I really think the holiday season is a positive time to get together and to be able to remember those who are, not with us, but to celebrate some of those traditions, albeit maybe they're not the best, but it's the spirit, it's the idea behind it that we want to celebrate and say is a good thing. And that's what we want to pass on to our kids, that yes, they're going to make up their own minds and there's different traditions we want to celebrate or may not want to celebrate. But however, let's not lose the overall. I wouldn't even say, as people use the term, the reason for the season. That's not even it, right? Because we know that that's a whole different discussion of itself. But don't lose the idea of coming together in family. It's again the whole idea of Thanksgiving, right? And it has negative connotations for those who have indigenous backgrounds. And there's a woman I just found out the other day, an indigenous woman who was mixed, with African American or Black, and she created. I didn't even know it was the thing. My wife laughed. She said she'd been hearing about it from time. Friendsgiving. I never even heard about that, right? So I was teaching my class, and I had to incorporate. Well, what's this whole Friendsgiving thing? Here's an indigenous person who's trying to recapture the idea of Thanksgiving, but to help those less fortunate than them, disenfranchised, but still bring people together in the idea of sharing a meal and sharing time together and taking care of those less fortunate. So she's created a new tradition that may seem negative out of the perspective and the ideology and viewpoint of someone who's indigenous and native, because of the negativity that's associated with that particular holiday. However, you're making the best of it because that's the world we live in. So for me, that's what I see the real result, the end outcome of the holiday is making the best of it and finding a way to really celebrate those traditions that for us bring us closer together as people, as families, as humanity, so to speak. So over to you, Andy.
Well, I'll conclude by saying I think we all kind of said it. It's about family. The holidays, regardless of the theme of the topic, is about coming together. Families getting to spend time together, breaking bread together, breaking too much bread sometimes, but a lot of food, a lot of drinks. But it's a one time of the year, whether it's the Thanksgiving or the Christmas season, where do you guys now find the climate of the attitude and the mood of people? It's friendlier. It's just more caring. It's more. The world seems to be in a better place around that time of the year. I don't know if it's just, I don't know if it's real or fantasized, like you were saying, Joe. But I just think people seem to be in a better place in terms of really living like we should as humanity, right? That's not just the families, but the extended people, the neighbors. Everybody have this feeling of giving and thanksgiving and love and togetherness and unity. Obviously, we still got always a lot of stuff going on in this world in different countries and different, but for the most part, I'm going from where I grew up to where I am here. And I see the this time of the year, people have a different mood, a different attitude, which is a good thing. So regardless of their reason for the season or their beliefs or their customs, if we can kind of, that's why my wife always said, babe, Christmas should be year round. People will be just more kind and just more considerate and just more loving, because around Christmas time, everything seems to change. So, this topic, it's one of maybe we can define more pieces of it going forward. But I would say for the most part, what we got out of this is around the family, around the holiday season. The big thing is we get together, we do our norms and traditions, and we just enjoy being together and making it a time where we can reflect on the year. Right after the holidays, the new year, that's a whole nother thing, as you say, Joe, transition into the new year with the new beginning, with the new perspective and goals and dreams and so forth. So anyhow, I think, we are out of time on this segment of our Tie-Dye Talks. Hopefully your audience got the gist of why we like the holiday season. Oh, I'm saying that. I hope everybody liked it. I know you said you weren't too into Christmas, Paul, but you love the fact that the way your white family kind of communed and always came over. When you reflect on that's been a good thing to see, and the kids were all proud of that. And you're looking forward to seeing what they're going to be doing as they bring the grandkids into the world, and you know what I mean, and then they continue the tradition. So for us, Judith and I, this is the third Christmas now with our grandsons. Yeah, it's interesting because now we're watching our kids, our daughters kind of create their own tradition, have their own Christmas tree and their own family values. And the best part, guys, we get to go to their house and not have to do all the work. And
Exactly.
you know what I mean? That's the blessing when you have them grow up, Paul. You get to go to their house instead of you being in the house of everything is centered around. So we enjoy that because we get to go. We don't have to clean up. We don't have to do all the cooking. So it's been great. But it's I think it's such an important time of the year to continue to give thanks, I would say, as we close. Give thanks. And I'm just going to pass it around. Closing alibis as we close. Your last leaving point of this discussion, because we were all over, but I thought it was still, as always, a good, very heartfelt discussion. So closing alibis, Tiff, 2 minutes.
It'll be less than that.
Okay. I
I
figured
think
that. That's why I said 2 minutes. Trying to draw you out, not in.
I think it's definitely the season of intention. People are more intentional. You have to think about what to get somebody for a gift, and not often do we have to think about others, and we get a break from work. It's really time that's concentrated for others, and for ourselves as well in terms of reflection. So it's really about being intentional with what you want to do and, chalking up your cooking skills and working on that. So, because you don't want to get embarrassed in front of the family. So,
Okay. Joe.
I would say that the holidays are very volatile in terms of emotions, can be very up and down. I think I would just say like you can allow yourself to feel however you need to at any given moment, because that it doesn't feelings you don't usually last. So you can kind of ride the wave and enjoy that process in that regard, and like look forward to the next phase of whatever it is.
Paul.
Yeah, as we come to the holiday season and we wrap this episode of Holiday Talks, I just want to wish everybody the best for the season, and hopefully we'll see you around and continue to feedback and let us know what your thoughts are, and if you have any more conversation around this idea of holidays, perhaps maybe we'll do another one and talk about maybe a bit more specific around the holidays, ideas and themes that are coming up. But definitely thank you for being with us this week. I think it was a very interesting talk around, what we each look at in terms of traditions and celebrations, and hopefully you all will have your own traditions and celebrate with your families as you go forward. So thanks once again, and we're back to you, Andy, and then that's it.
I think you said it all. It's a perfect way to end, Paul. Thank you so much to take us out.
Alrighty, so stay with us. Check us out whenever you can. Be back around. We'll be continuing to talk, and it's going to be Holiday Talks Part 2, right? So we'll see you again wherever you picked us up last time. Pick us up again next time. All right.